Welcome to Module 2, Ayurveda, one of my favorites. My goal is to bring enlightenment to the practice of Ayurveda. Much like practicing yoga, we practice Ayurveda. I am your guide and will guide you through this practice. In the end, you are responsible for making Ayurveda, or any other healthy habits really, as a practice in your life. So after this module, I encourage you to keep the practice going. Continue to learn more. As a matter of fact, learn something new every day. And even share with your family and friends your new knowledge, because traditionally, hundreds of years ago, Ayurveda was passed from generation to generation, or from one kitchen table to another. As Westerners, learning from our grandmothers and their mothers got lost in the Industrial Revolution. So let's bring back this theory, the ability to share the gift of Ayurveda and how to nourish our bodies daily, instead of eating junk and expecting or relying on our doctors to fix us because we neglected our right to have such knowledge to pass from generation to generation. What we will learn in this module: a recap of Module 1, digestion and elimination. Everything starts with digestion. Ojas and Ama, importance of oils, daily Ayurveda practices anyone can do, 3 doshas and 5 elements, properties of doshas, and eating right for your body's needs. I also want to add on here that at any time during these modules, the beauty of the fact that this is pre-recorded, you have the ability to pause at any time, read over some of this material to absorb it and soak it in, take notes, and learn at your own pace. But as I move through and read through the slides, I also offer up extra little tidbits here and there. If at any time, though, again, you want to pause it to read and absorb, take notes on your own, then please feel free like you can. A little quote for you: the way you think, the way you behave, the way you eat can influence your life by 30 to 50 years. And that's by Deepak Chopra. A recap of Module 1, if you were with us on Module 1. Ayurveda is a science of life. Ayur in Sanskrit actually means life. Veda equals science or knowledge. A medical and spiritual system that merges the mind, body, and spirit. Ayurveda is the world's oldest health system and is still practiced globally. Chinese medicine and Ayurveda were close in practice and even shared their knowledge. All across Europe, Asia, and so on, you will see the influence. Ayurveda is the sister science of yoga, with the purpose of health and well-being, while yoga's purpose is spiritual awakening. I want to note that if you are doing yoga for the health benefits, then you are actually doing Ayurveda. Yoga is technically to help people reach what's called samadhi, or enlightenment, which we will have more on samadhi and enlightenment in Module 4. But Ayurveda is about doing things for the health benefits, or is more results driven, meaning you get results that you can kind of measure. You feel better, your digestion's flowing, you're absorbing nutrients, you're losing weight. You can measure these things. You can visually see your body changing by even having less water retention. So Ayurveda is more results driven for the health benefits, where yoga is more results driven based on reaching samadhi, that enlightenment, that peace of mind, meditation, sitting with things, and being much more spiritual. Both have a mind-body-spirit connection, but yoga is technically more of the chanting, the singing, the sitting, the meditation. Ayurveda is results-driven based on the benefits it has to your daily health. Ayurveda is huge. This course will be a jumpstart to use Ayurveda in your daily routine. Guidelines to practice and make better food choices for your body and to get your digestion flowing as a form of prevention from future complications. To become a true Ayurveda doctor or specialist, it can take 7 to 8 years of college full-time. So if you ever want to truly see a specialist, ask for their credentials. They should have very similar credentials to even a medical doctor here in the U.S. Or often you'll see integrative specialists, meaning they are a medical doctor, an MD, but have studied some Ayurveda, so they've integrated the two. Much like yoga, Ayurveda is a practice, always changing and never perfect. Also, before I move on from this slide, I want to clarify my knowledge in Ayurveda. I am not a doctor. I am far from being a doctor of Ayurveda, but my master herbalist, nutrition, and yoga training does afford me some understanding, education, and knowledge from a day-to-day perspective to help people, to guide them through the day-to-day practice of Ayurveda. Much like I am a yoga guide or a yoga instructor, I encourage my students to listen to their bodies. I am their guide as I lead them through a sequence of yoga postures that will build strength, flexibility, and stimulate their internal organs. But in the end, they are responsible for their own practice. I cannot make them stand in warrior two or fold into a forward fold. They have to do it on their own. But with my guidance, I guide them through it. They are responsible to show up to their mats. To make their yoga practice happen, they have to show up. And then listen to their body and connect their own mind, body, spirit. They should back off if something doesn't feel right, or go deeper if their bodies yield it. And I am their guide to challenge them and educate them as they do so. Now take that concept into your eating habits. Daily healthcare regimen like bathing, skincare, brushing your teeth, breathing deeply, and even cultivating healthy thoughts about ourselves and others. Our thoughts can sometimes be our own worst enemies. So we also need to practice daily habits of how we think about ourselves and others. Practicing these things daily instead of moving through life as a zombie, though, can awaken the true vitality within all of us and find a greater meaning or path to better health and vitality daily. This is how I like to help my clientele as well. When I do one-on-ones with people, I like to educate them and bless them with the knowledge to take care of themselves daily. What happens next is up to them. I cannot be there to hold their hands daily, and neither can their doctor, as a matter of fact. Doctors have less time and less rapport with their clientele than I spend with my clientele. Yes, we need our doctors for the big stuff, but daily we can feel better with the help of Ayurveda and resist burdening our doctors with the daily ailments. Often doctors with the daily ailments, they don't always have an answer for you. And to educate you on nutrition would just take more than a 15-minute office visit. And in the end, some doctors just end up writing you a prescription for, say, heartburn, cholesterol, depression, anxiety. So hopefully maybe Ayurveda can help you find some relief. The Ayurveda pie. I made this to show that there's multiple ways you can practice Ayurveda and find the prana. Prana is the energy. It's known as your vitality. It's your life force. It runs through your veins. In Chinese medicine, the equivalent can be qi. So sometimes you hear people talking about having the qi that flows through their body. And you want to find righteous qi, because if you have righteous qi, then you are truly living your dreams, right? So going over these pieces of the pie, you can practice Ayurveda externally. So that would be kind of like the tongue scraping, dry brushing, oil massage, oil pulling. The doshas, getting into your specific body type and how to nourish your body based on your dosha or combination of doshas. Seasonal, meaning that all of us in the winter, especially if you live in an area that gets cold in the winter, you would want to cater to some of the vata needs that we will get into later in this module. Herbal, meaning you might take some supplements like turmeric or drink teas. There's the tridosha tea of fennel, cumin, and coriander, which I believe is in the next slide or two. We will get into that a little bit more, but right now I'm just giving you an overview. Pranayama is the breath. So you might even just sit down and practice some breathing exercises to get the prana flowing through your body versus via pranayama. So pranayama is the extension of the prana. And this extension is our breath. Our breath extends the prana in our bodies, the vitality. Asana, physical stimulation, and it massages the organs, the body. So again, if you are doing yoga for the stimulation that it gives the organs in your body when you twist, gets the digestion going when you're doing some twisting exercises. So that would be the asana. Asana means physical. It's the poses, the yoga poses. So doing the yoga poses for the benefit of your organs and getting the digestion going. So you could practice one or two of these or do them all. Really, it could be up to you. And as we learned in Module 1 with the goal setting, it's nice to sometimes take baby steps. So rather than trying to eat this pie all at once, eat it one piece at a time, adding on a little bit more. Finding out which pieces of the pie you like, which pieces of the pie don't resonate with you is fine. So taking a sampling. I also want to point out here, I have the triple asterisks. If you are under the care of a physician or taking medication, be sure to consult or research any contraindications with taking herbs or drinking herbal teas even. Also, find clearance for any physical practice if needed. So if you are under a doctor's supervision for a knee replacement, a fractured vertebra in your spine, or bulging disc in your spine or something like that, make sure you have clearance to be doing a little bit of twisting and some physical practice. Digestion and elimination. Everything comes down to digestion and elimination. Instead of we are what we eat, it is more like we are what we digest. Meaning you could have a fairly clean diet already, but if you are not digesting it well or assimilating the nutrients, then you may not be any healthier than someone who eats junk. All health, good or bad, comes down to digestion and elimination. Plain and simple. This is where we start and end. If the transit time in your body is slow, then again, even if you have a fairly clean diet, if you aren't pooping in a timely manner, too fast or too slow, you may not be any healthier than someone who eats junk. So if you are constipated and not pooping often enough, then your body could start reabsorbing those toxins from not eliminating your waste properly. The opposite, if you're pooping too fast or too soon after a meal, then that means the food's moving through your body too quickly and you're not absorbing it. Good news is you're getting any toxins out of your body, but along the way, it's also not breaking down properly for absorption. Poor digestion can come from what is called a leaky gut or an inflamed gut. For instance, someone who has gluten intolerance or celiacs. What is happening is that their gut gets inflamed from seeing gluten as an irritant. When this is the case, your small intestine cannot do its job because it is inflamed. No nutrients are being absorbed, and sometimes this creates a traffic jam, and the overflow leaks past the walls of the intestines and into the areas of the body where they do not belong, creating even more irritations and inflammation. It becomes a horrible cycle, and nothing gets digested properly. Your body starts to take on fat. Fat is actually our body's defense against what it sees as toxins. When somebody's body is more toxic, they tend to take on more fat, or the fat easily sets in. Fat starts to collect on your organs as kind of a life preserver. Our bodies have a way of trying to take care of themselves. And taking on excess fat is the body's way of trying to protect itself from something. It thinks that it's a life preserver. It'll build up fat in inflamed areas to try and protect it. It thinks it's doing good. But we continue to just keep stressing our bodies out, doing these bad habits on a daily basis, expecting the body to be tolerating this when really all it's doing is trying to protect itself from your daily habits. I could go on forever on the multiple chain reactions, but my point is, you can buy what you perceive as healthy foods. You may be avoiding junk food. You may not be going through the McDonald's drive-thru. But if your body isn't digesting that expensive organic food, then your body is not benefiting from it. So that is why digestion is always your first line of defense in trying to heal your body. Moving on with the slide, we're back to always start with the gut. The book, The Prime by Kulreet Chowdhury, she's a medical doctor, is a perfect book for this and a must-have for everyone who wants to avoid dis-ease or reverse dis-ease through diet. So it's just kind of a clever way of using words here. Disease is something that a doctor can diagnose. I am not a doctor. I'm not going to diagnose any kind of diseases. But we also know that a disease does create the feeling of dis-ease in the body. So it's kind of a play on words, but yet so true, right? When we have a disease, then our body doesn't feel at ease. But she really digs deep into digestion and healing the gut to heal your body. Headaches. Oh, this is a big subject. A lot of people can maybe resonate with this or maybe learn from this. Dr. Coolreet starts out her book by explaining her own path of having headaches. She is a neurologist, a doctor of the head, right? The brain. She herself was suffering from migraines and was treating herself as she was taught in medical school. She started taking some of the migraine medicines and they weren't working for her. She was starting to learn about why her clients were saying that the migraine medicine wasn't working for them either, and she started to experience this on her own. Backing up just a little bit, based on her name, you can kind of tell that she might be from India herself. So she was from India. She came to the United States to become a medical doctor, a U.S. medical doctor, and chose neurology. But when she started to have these problems and treating herself as she would her clients and not getting relief, she really started to dig a little bit deeper. And deeper meaning she called mommy. When she called her mom started to suggest some things to her, some of these Ayurvedic methods that had been passed from generation to generation in their family. And she actually did start to feel better. When she came to the U.S. as a college student, a stressful college student, she started to eat a lot of junk food and live the American lifestyle. And then that's when she started getting these headaches through medical school and after medical school doing her clinicals and everything. But with her mom's help, she started to get back into feeling better and the headaches started to subside. She wanted to know more, of course. And how can this be? She's a neurologist. She's a medical doctor. She went to school for this. So why can everything she learned in school not be working, but what her mother provides for her works? So she decided to move back to India, went to school to take on Ayurveda. So she's become what's called an integrative doctor, meaning she's got the Western medical doctor side of her as well as the Ayurvedic side of, and she treats her clients based on both these knowledges. And has worked with other doctors too, that they're really starting to find the connection between our digestive health truly is the basis for a lot of our health issues. Everything, again, starts with digestion. If you're not digesting properly, then other things in your body are going to start to go awry. And even your brain or things going on in your head and your upper extremities. There's more and more doctors. There's Dr. Perlmutter, who Dr. Perlmutter supports all the Garden of Life vitamins and supplements and even the digestive enzymes as well as probiotics Dr. Perlmutter is also a neurologist just like Coolreet Chowdhury. But he started to discover the same things, that when he focused on the bacteria and the digestion of the gut, then people's other symptoms, specifically even headaches and neurological issues, started to go away. So all these doctors now are starting to make this connection that everything starts with digestion, even all the way up to the tip-top of your head and down to your toes. I myself used to be a big headache sufferer, and all of this learning from her started to really make sense to me, that when I started to change my diet tremendously, then my headaches went away. Again, at a time when I was eating more vegetarian, is also around a time when I was having more headaches. And adjusting my diet, dropping all wheat and most grains, period. I still do some oatmeal. But by dropping a lot of foods in my diet, I started to get a lot more relief. And to this day, knock on wood, I might only get a migraine or a headache once or twice a year. I can get a low-grade headache, don't get me wrong, a low-grade headache here and there, but those debilitating migraines that kept me from being able to even function, I haven't had one of those in a while, knock on wood. And when I do have one and I think back to what I've been eating, I realize that yes, I've been eating junk or crap or maybe not enough animal proteins again. I start to sink back into my vegetarian ways because I just love animals too much. Anyways, we can get more into this as we learn about the doshas, but her book is amazing. Even if you're just suffering from headaches, she will help you out. Another example I want here, I have the fire and ice at the bottom. Another Ayurveda specialist that I used a lot of material for this module. She uses an example of fire and ice. When our digestion is fire, that's how we break down our foods, is we need to have some fire in our belly to break it down. If you are consuming cold beverages a lot, or even you're starting out your day with that smoothie that has frozen strawberries and other frozen fruit and a protein mix and ice cubes, immediately you're putting ice on your fire. So you're starting out your day by putting out your fire. If you're one of the three doshas, or rather one of the two doshas that doesn't have a strong fire to begin with, and then you put whatever fire you have, if you put it out with ice or cold foods, then you're going to make your digestion worse. We will definitely dig more into this with the three doshas. But just imagine you have a campfire or your grill and you're trying to cook food on your grill, but somebody comes along and throws a huge bucket of ice on top of it. The fire goes out. So just keep that in the back of your mind there about how you can put out a fire with cold things. One more thing to note before we move on here. To heal your gut or heal your digestion, you need to stop eating whatever it is that is not setting well with you and rebuild. Your body will not start to let go of the inflammation or excess fat until it feels free from the buildup of toxins. And then after you stop eating maybe whatever's bothering you or doing whatever's bothering you, it can still be a long road. Just stopping doesn't mean tomorrow you're going to feel amazing. It has been said to reverse an issue, it can take a minimum of 1 month per year that you have suffered from the issue. And on top of that, the issue could have started well before you had symptoms. So if you know it has bothered you for 2 or 3 years, you've had symptoms for 2 or 3 years, it is actually possible that it could be 5 years that you've been suffering from something. So to get relief, it could take 5 months or more. And this is from true discipline and due diligence. If you fall off the wagon, if you go 2 months and then you fall off the wagon for a month, you pretty much almost have to start over again. So keep this in mind. There is no instant gratification if you're having some really serious gut issues. There's no instant gratification. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to believe in it and fight for it and take care of yourself. Ojas and Ama. Ayurveda focuses on health to achieve balance. By cleaning up your diet, you can clean up your life by creating space for positivity, living life lighter, brighter, and more energized. This is known as building your ojas. When you are digesting and eliminating your food and your thoughts properly, you are cultivating ojas, or vitality. This could also be thought of as the prana and the chi again, but they specifically like to kind of call this the ojas. When food and your thoughts sit with you and you feel stuck, heavy, unmotivated, and can't make a decision to save your life, you are harboring what's called ama. Ama is the underlying cause of nearly every health issue. Ama is what makes you toxic. Whether it is something you consumed, something you can't digest, or the energy around you. Ama is the wind that stirs up imbalance in your body. Ojas is vitality. Ama is toxicity. The importance of oils. Oils got a bad rap years ago, and the stigma sticks around in old habits or ways of thinking. Healthy oils do not make you fat. Do avoid cheap vegetable oils or genetically modified oils. Coconut oil, avocado oil, ghee for high temperature cooking. Butter, almond oil, sesame oil, olive oil for low to no temp cooking. So those are the ones that are good to spread on top of your food or in a salad dressing. Let's see here. Adding oil to your food makes it easier to digest. If oils are hard on your belly, we will learn more when we get into the 3 doshas and who can stomach heavy oils and who cannot. The oil allows for the breakdown of food and enables your gastrointestinal tract to better process the food by slowing down digestion and assimilation in those who digest too quickly. By saying digest too quickly, I'm talking about sugars entering the system. Fat will slow down this process. That is why the whole craze of low fat actually started to make people fat. When they started to remove oils from baking specifically, then we started to create a banana bread per se that was digested too quickly, created a sugar rush, raised the glycemic index, and if not properly burned as fuel, it was stored as fat in the body, and also started to throw off some people's sugar levels, hence some type 2 diabetes possibly. Again, I'm not a doctor. Who am I to say? But we do know nowadays more and more that the more we let our sugar imbalances get out of control, it can lead to much greater dis-ease in the body. Coming back to my play on words again. Feeling that uneasiness in the body. The dis-ease. Back to our slide though. Foods like turmeric need oil to absorb properly. The oil helps open up the cells in the body and distribute it and digest it at the proper time in the small intestine to get it to where it needs to be. Oil is the key to hydration as well. Our cells cannot absorb water without it. The beauty industry has scared many people away from using oils on their faces. Oil can actually be used to cleanse the skin as well as to moisturize it. There's some great techniques out there. If you ever want to Google oil cleansing, you can actually clean your skin with oil. So somebody who tends to have drier skin, more acneic skin, sometimes it's better to soothe the skin with a gentle oil than it is to always be using those harsh cleansers on your skin. Just something to think about. As an esthetician, if you ever want to know more about these things, I can also help you out on the side. Just let me know when you have questions. Daily Ayurvedic practices. So when we go back to that pie of the different things that we can do to practice Ayurveda without having to eat the entire pie. Some daily Ayurvedic practices to start with could be dry brushing your skin with a loofah in the direction of your lymph. So you don't actually take the loofah in the shower with you. You keep it dry, so before you shower, you brush your skin with it. After a shower, you can rub oil on your skin and massage in the direction of the lymph. Just to clarify, the lymph flows towards your heart and lungs. So when you're dry brushing or putting oil on your skin, say you're doing your leg, you want to start with your foot and then work up through the ankle, the calf, your knee, your thigh. You're moving in the direction of your heart and your lungs. The reason why I say heart and lungs is because you're trying to get the circulation going to your heart. Your lungs has to do with the lymph system. Your lymph specifically flows through your body, and it actually drains to your lymph or your respiratory, your lungs. So you also want to stimulate your lymph to flow towards your lungs, and then your lungs are what detox the lymph. So when you breathe, you are actually releasing toxins from the lymph, which is another reason that pranayama, breathing, is so important to good health, is making sure you breathe. Not breathing just because that's what we have to do to survive all day, but breathing for your actual health and well-being. Mindful breathing, the practice of pranayama. Tongue scraper. You can use a tongue scraper to remove the ama. Remember, ama is the toxins in your body. Scrape at least 10 times, and a stainless steel scraper is fine. I say this because if you Google tongue scrapers, you'll probably find some Ayurvedic scrapers that are made out of copper and silver, and they're kind of expensive. If you want to take Ayurveda deeper into the copper and silver benefits, you can research that, but stainless steel is actually fine. Resist using plastic, though, and resist wanting to use your toothbrush. A toothbrush is to clean your teeth. A tongue scraper is to scrape your tongue. I do know of some people that will use a spoon upside down to scrape their tongue. So if you want to be frugal or you want to start today without having a tongue scraper, you can use a spoon. The idea, though, with tongue scraping is when you wake up in the morning, especially, you have this ama on your tongue, the ama, this goo, this mucousy goo. If you start to drink something right away, all you're doing is swallowing the toxins that your body overnight spent time trying to cleanse and bring to the surface. Brings to the surface of your tongue even. So you want to scrape this ama off instead of swallowing it and re-entering that bacteria back into your body. When you start to really think about all of this, it really does kind of motivate you to scrape your tongue in the mornings. This has become something that I do daily, and I feel like I've forgotten something if I don't do it. Oil pulling is a similar theory. You take about a tablespoon of oil or a teaspoon. Start out small till you know how much you can actually handle. But a teaspoon of oil, swish it around in your mouth for at least 3 minutes. If you Google this, some people will tell you have to do 20 minutes, but I have done some fact checking, and the resources that I've found say that 3 minutes is ample. But if you want to do longer, it's not going to hurt to do longer. But to create a daily habit, 3 minutes is a good place to start, so you're more apt to do it. If you think you have to do it for 20 minutes every time, you're not going to want to get around to doing it. So oil pulling, it's also helping remove that ama. Whatever is in your body that starts to come to through your salivary glands or your respiratory. Remember I mentioned your lymph drains to your respiratory, and then your respiratory is coming out through your mouth and building up on your tongue. So you can do oil pulling and tongue scraping. Drink some herbal teas for digestion and immune boosting. A tridosha tea to get your digestion going is in the next slide. It was also in Module 1, so we'll cover more of that in a moment here. You can add flaxseed meal for fiber. At bedtime, you can mix 1 teaspoon each of flaxseed and psyllium husks into a glass of room temperature water. Stir. Drink quickly or it kind of gets really thick on you. But fiber supports and feeds the good bacteria in your gut to help promote more growth of healthy bacteria. Also, fiber will absorb the ama, the toxins, on its way through your body. So kind of like a sponge, imagine the fiber absorbing the toxins as well as feeding the good bacteria in your gut to help out that balance of bacteria in your body. Eating seasonally or eating locally grown foods can be good for the body. Here in Colorado, we tend to not have a lot of coconuts growing on the tree. So that's where the whole eating locally comes in. Granted, we are a society that we can go to the store and buy a coconut, and I love coconut and I eat coconut. But sometimes when it comes back to healing your body, if you're truly trying to heal your body, come back to the basics. Come back to what is natural for your region, seasonally and locally, just to heal your body. Doesn't mean you can't ever eat coconut again, but if you're having some issues in your body, maybe eliminate those things that are not natural in your environment until your body gets stronger again. Also, maybe try adding some turmeric to your diet. Turmeric has lots of benefits. You can Google them. And one of the biggest benefits is it reduces inflammation in the body naturally. And you don't have to be a vegetarian to practice Ayurveda. However, when we discuss the 3 doshas in depth, we will discuss which dosha does do well as a vegetarian. Tridoshic tea. To make a tridoshic tea, you want 1 teaspoon each of coriander, fennel seeds, and cumin. Boil in hot water, strain, and sip like tea. I was able to buy my coriander, fennel, and cumin seeds. There's even a picture of them there down at the bottom. I bought mine at Natural Grocers by Vitamin Cottage. So most health food stores will have them. You can even go to a spice section and just buy the spice jars of these. It is going to be easier if you can find the whole seeds. It's easier to strain them, whereas if it's a full powder, it's hard to strain them. It can be done, and you might want to use less if you have the powder version because it will steep quicker or stronger. The idea is to make a batch of 4 to 5 cups, store it in a thermos, and drink it all day. You want to drink it warm, so that's why you'd store it in a thermos. Also, it's been said that if you microwave it, you're kind of breaking down the nutrients or its benefits with the radiation from the microwave. So they don't promote reheating it, but rather once you make it, keep it warm if you can, and then drink it all day to heal your gut. You want to be done drinking it somewhere around 5 in the evening though, because it will stimulate you to pee a little bit more. You'll notice you're going to pee more. So if you want to be able to make it through the night without having to pee all night, then you want to start cutting yourself off in the early evening, late afternoon. Cumin is for indigestion, gas, and other digestive issues, also known to soothe inflamed mucous membranes. So mucous membranes could even be your sinuses, the phlegm in your throat, also the mucous membranes of your stomach, not stomach lining, but the intestines. Coriander relieves gas, indigestion, and spasms. So very similar to the cumin, but we're starting to add in spasms here. If you ever feel like you're spasming. Spasms can also maybe explain diarrhea, that things are moving too quickly, they're spasming. Also known to inhibit joint swelling associated with arthritis. Fennel for colic, so you just kind of feel like your gut is twisted, you have that dull ache in the belly. IBS, the irritable bowel syndrome, meaning some days you might be constipated, the next day your stool is loose and diarrhea. And other painful digestive issues because it relaxes the muscles. So that colic, again, colic is when you feel like your gut is twisted, the muscles are bound up and cramping. So it'll relax the muscles of the digestive tract and get the lymph flowing. So this could be helpful if you have any lymphatic toxins going on in your body. This tea is simply called tridoshic, meaning that it truly does help all three doshas. Again, as we learn more, you'll learn that ideally it would be nice if you are a balance of all three doshas. So this tea would help try and bring that balance of the three doshas together. The best part of Ayurveda? Throw out the notion that there is one way of eating for everyone. People are more and more getting tired of the one-size-fits-all. So this would kind of be talking about our food pyramid made by the government or whoever made that food pyramid, believing that there's one size that fits all, or even all the multivitamins that are sold out there, assuming that one size fits all, even as a multivitamin. I am not a big fan of multivitamins, even though I work at Whole Foods and am surrounded by multivitamins. They are not the best way to serve our body. It can be insurance. Sure, taking them is some sort of insurance that maybe you're getting the nutrients you need. But the notion that there's one size that fits all is kind of old thinking. And Ayurveda loves to throw out the notion that there's one way of eating for everybody. And as we move on into your doshas, we will learn more. Which brings us to the 5 elements. The 5 elements are the ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Within those 5 elements, you'll see the vata, pitta, and kapha. Those are the 3 doshas. This picture or diagram shows how the 5 elements and the 3 doshas work together. The 3 doshas, vata, pitta, kapha. Vata is comprised of ether and air, while pitta is comprised of fire and water, and kapha is made up of water and earth. As you see, there's a little bit of an overlap there with the pitta and kapha. They both share the water element, but they both share it in different ways. And we will definitely learn more about this as we move on. But keep this picture in mind, or if you ever need to pause this video and skip back to it, look at it again, you can at any time. Or print out the printed version that I provide with each module, and it will have the picture as well. The 5 elements. Ayurveda is based on the natural elements fire, water, earth, air, and ether. Ether is space. We will get into that more. We have all experienced each of these elements, and they are in our bodies as well. They represent as different components of your physical and mental characteristics. Fire is hot and powerful. Water is fluid and cool. Earth is dense and grounding. Air is light and moving. Ether you can't see, but you can feel. It is related to your intuition. It is also the vastness of looking up at the stars on a clear night. Or even, sometimes I like to say, pausing and taking time to stop and smell the flowers. So it's not something you can truly see, but you feel it when your intuition is telling you it's time to just slow down. Again, ether's a tough one to sometimes comprehend, and we will get into it just a little bit more. We have seen all these elements to describe our horoscopes as well. Me being a Taurus, I'm very much an earth element. I'm very grounded. My body likes to be grounded. Ayurveda uses these elements as references to explain all the aspects of your physical and mental well-being. Some people are more fiery, while others are more watery. For example, examples of the 5 elements: air as movement of gas in your colon. Earth as your structure, your stability, your support. Fire, your metabolism and digestion. Water as hydration and fluidity. Fluidity can even be in your decision making, right? Being more fluid, going with the flow in your decision making. Ether as the space in your gastrointestinal tract. Again, that gut instinct. And the 5 elements make up the 3 doshas. A dosha simply means energy. Doshas are energies used to describe your food, your body, your mind, your environment, and everything else. So it's the energy that even it takes to grow a plant or a tree, the energy within all of it and everything in life. Ether can also be described as the essence of emptiness. In Module 1, I talked about the retention breath and being okay with the emptiness. So it would be the ether you are connecting with when you connect you with that emptiness. We constantly buy things, take on extracurricular activities, or overeat food to try and fill this space, or ether, as it's known here. At some time in life, we became uncomfortable with the emptiness. Due to the loss of a loved one, a broken heart, being rejected from a group of friends as a kid, or whatever trauma we have experienced. Either way, no matter what the story is, we start to reach for other things to fill us up, to make up for the emptiness. Skip to a life of overabundance, running everywhere to do a million activities, buying things we don't need, or overeating to feel full. If we can learn to not fear the ether or the emptiness, it can really turn a person's life around. How can we do this? With the air. The yin and the yang of each other are air and ether. So the vata is made up of air and ether. If we add more air to the ether, then it will balance itself out. And I might be losing you here. Hang in there. So if everything in life has a yin and a yang, a night, a day, a black, a white, cold, hot, then when you look at air and ether, some people might think it's the same. But again, the ether is the space around you. So imagine somebody who has claustrophobia. They feel like they can't breathe because everything is clustering around them. They feel clustered, they feel weighed down, they can't breathe air. When all they need to do is inhale and take in some air, right? So coming back to our breathing exercise in Module 1, the retention breathing. You inhale and pause. That pause is the ether. or even exhaling might explain it a little bit more. When you exhale and you find the emptiness at the bottom, that emptiness is the ether. So by starting to breathe and cultivate the air in and out of your body, and even finding the retention, that space of emptiness, you can start to balance out the ether. Another way to explain this might be maybe you need to clean out the clutter in your house. Maybe you have so much going on in your house. You're starting to hoard things. You're starting to take on too much. You start to feel claustrophobic because you've taken on too much. Well, maybe it's time to let go of a few things. Create some space. Create space so you can breathe the air. Is that starting to seem more clear? That when things are cluttered, it's hard to breathe. The air can't balance out the space. Just maybe pause this for a moment and even think about it, or replay this section about the feeling of being weighed down, cluttered, and not being able to breathe, that claustrophobia. And by clearing the space, creating more space, more room to breathe and even think, then we have more air to balance out the ether, the space. It's a deep thought. It really, really is. If it's getting lost, don't worry about it. Don't panic. But truly, the ether is when you take that time to stop and smell the roses or gaze at the stars, and you feel that ability to be able to breathe. The claustrophobia goes away. The sensation of the heaviness. The space is being cleared, and you can breathe. Vata, the air and ether. So now we're finally moving on to what makes up the three doshas. And I just got really deep and heavy about the ether. So while it's still fresh in your mind, let's go over what it means to be Vata. The body type of a Vata is slender, and they have a difficulty putting on muscle. When they do gain weight, it is often squishy and surface fat. The gain looks out of place and it bulks up in certain areas. Since Vatas are used to being slender, then they notice and get quite annoyed at this. Weight gain is a true sign of Vata being out of balance. The season is late fall and winter. Everyone can feel this regardless of the dosha test results, especially in colder regions. Although a Vata usually doesn't like winter because they are already cold. So it's kind of that double negative, right? You're already a Vata, and then it's cold outside. You're already naturally cold, and then it's cold outside. So Vatas tend to want summer to balance out their naturally cold side. The organs that the Vata governs is the small intestines, the gastrointestinal tract, colon, bones, pelvic area, belly, heart, and head. So if you have issues in any of these areas, it could be a Vata imbalance. If these areas are healthy on you, then your Vata is moving pretty well. Vata is the movement, all movement in the body. So your heartbeat, the gastrointestinal tract, the movement of your food moving through the gastrointestinal tract. Your lungs, so again, that's movement. Your lungs expand and contract with breath. They have movement. And even your diaphragm goes up and down as you breathe. It governs the blood circulation. So again, movement, elimination, respiration, ingestion, heart function, menstruation, orgasm, hearing, touch, creativity, emotions, nervous system, peristalsis. The peristalsis, again, is the movement of the colon and the intestines to keep things moving through your body. That digestion and elimination. Enzyme secretion, so being able to digest your food and break it down. Nutrient assimilation, and exercise physical movement. Dry. Vatas tend to be dry. Dry hair, dry skin, dry tongue. The colon is dry, meaning things are moving slowly. Tendency towards constipation and a hoarse voice. A hoarse voice due to a dry throat. Light. They tend to be a light body frame, light muscles. They don't show a lot of muscle mass. Bone structure is smaller. Scanty sleep or irregular sleep patterns, so they tend to be light sleepers. Cold. They're cold all the time. Cold hands, feet, poor circulation. Hates the cold and loves hot weather. Body stiffness and menstrual irregularities with your vata. Sometimes vatas, a true deep vata with an imbalance, can even have no period at all. Rough. They tend to have rough bumps on the skin, calloused feet, cracked nails, rough hair, and cracking joints. Subtle twitching, delicate features, anxiety, and muscle tremors. Like my Chihuahua here tends to sometimes have those muscle tremors and anxiety. I'm only saying that because he's sitting with me right now. Mobile. They tend to have flexible bodies. They're quick moving, fast walkers and talkers. They like to multitask, constantly on the move. Many dreams, often about fleeing or flying. So they're light sleepers, but they have many dreams. Loves to travel. Can't stay in one place for too long. Mood swings, uncertainty, changes the mind easily. Remember, Vata is movement, so even the movement of their thoughts are always changing. Clear. That's the ether, right? Having the space around them. They are intuitive and they need a clear and open mind. They're philosophical and need space to think. So again, that's that ether. When a Vata has some claustrophobia issues, it's because they need some space to think. They feel tied down and heavy. I don't want to get into this too much again because I did just a little bit ago. But they need things to be clear. They need space to think. When the mind is out of balance, the insomnia, the light sleeping is even worse. They have anxiety, loss of memory, flakiness, indecisiveness, moodiness, lack of creativity, fatigue, and so on. So again, not having that space to think, they start to have a loss of memory even. Astringent, the dryness in the throat, they burp, they get hiccups easily, loves moist and mushy food, craves sweet, sour, and salty foods. So just a little bit more on Vata before we move on. If Vata needs space to think, then you can imagine when they take the time to clear out the clutter in their lives and how it can muddle their thinking. The best thing a Vata can do is purge unnecessary clutter, whether it is mental clutter or physical around them. Usually it's both. If they physically purge everything they are holding on to around them by cleaning out a closet, basement, or room, then they start to feel lighter, and the ether around them feels clearer. They can think. But in the midst of the clutter, sometimes they can't even see what they can't see. It isn't even clear to them that what they possess around them is what's creating their imbalance. Until they can let go of what is filling up their space, they can't even see that they need more space. So, to create more ether in their body, they need to create space, unclutter. Pitta. Pitta is the fire and water dosha. I discussed with the fire and ice earlier how easily you can put out the fire with too much cold water, and vice versa. If you don't have enough water in your body, then the fire can possibly burn out of control. Think of a forest fire when Colorado or even California, goodness, when there's lack of water, there's fire everywhere. But vice versa, when there's a lot of water, then fire tends to suffer. So the body type of a pitta. The average size, or pittas tend to be average sized and gain muscle easily. When pittas gain weight, it tends to be inflammatory weight with lymphatic accumulation and fake fat. This would also be known as water retention. So their water is out of balance, too much water, not enough fire probably. When they get their digestion back into balance, they drop weight quickly as the lymph begins to move more quickly and the inflammation cools down. So it's finding that balance of fire and water for the pitta. The season is summer. And again, everyone can feel this regardless of the dosha test results. In the summer, we can all tend to feel like our digestion and the fire in our bodies a little bit stronger because our environment is warmer. However, pitta usually doesn't like the heat of summer because they are already hot. So then summer gets too hot for them. A pitta actually thrives in the winter. So if you've ever met that person who says, "Oh, I love winter," and they can go outside without a coat on, that's your pitta person. The organs are the stomach, so that makes sense. It's the digestion, right? The small intestines, so the breaking down of nutrients in the small intestines goes along with digestion. It's your blood, liver, gallbladder, and spleen, which liver, gallbladder, and spleen all produce digestive enzymes to help you break down your food. So they all go together. They all relate to digestion. And our blood is how the nutrients get delivered. So once it's digested, your blood has to deliver that. But it's what makes up your blood, not the blood flow. The blood flow is vata. Vata gets the blood flowing, the movement through your body. Pitta is what makes the blood nourishing. It provides, through digestion, it creates the nourishment in the blood. Governs your metabolism, digestion, appetite, assimilation of nutrients, thirst, taste, vision, body temp, luster of the skin and hair, food and skin sensitivities, intelligence, courage, ambition, and determination. Some of you know that I have, over the last few years, really suffered from some food and skin sensitivities. This would truly be some of that pitta imbalance coming in, and me needing to recognize those issues and focus a little bit on the pitta to help balance my body out. Moving on, the pitta is hot, so they have a strong digestive fire and appetite. High body temperature, doesn't do well in heat and humidity. Goes gray or even loses their hair early, has acne and inflammation. Sharp mind, teeth, jawline, penetrating gaze, pointed nose, tapering chin, and sharp memory can recall facts well, because they have a sharp memory, so they can recall facts well. Light. They're sensitive to bright light, fair skin, light-colored eyes, and agile body. This also makes a Pitta crave winter more as well, because they're sensitive to the long days and all the extra light. They love the short days and long nights. They're your nightlife people. They tend to stay up late too. Liquid. They have a tendency towards loose stool, excess sweat, thirst, and urination. Spreading. So acne and rashes and inflammation spread around the body. Desire to spread their name around the world and be in the spotlight. So Pittas like to be in the spotlight, the center of attention. Sour. They can have a sour stomach, acid, acidic pH, sensitive teeth and skin, and excess salivation. So they have to be careful with spicy foods and sour foods. Bitter. They have a bitter taste in their mouth. Nauseated, vomits easy, bitter personality, and cynical. So a Pitta has to be really careful about letting their Pitta get really super strong, and they start to get more bitter and cynical. Pungent. Heartburn, burning sensation in the stomach and mouth, irritability, and anger. Again, too much fire. That fire's burning like crazy inside them. Putrid, foul-smelling odor in the underarms, mouth, and feet. The mind is out of balance when anger, frustration, narcissism, competitiveness, stress, burnout, irritability, and hatred and impatience consumes them. Kapha, earth and water. Body type, have bigger boned bodies and gain weight easily. However, they carry the weight well. This is the full-figured person that looks beautiful regardless of how they look. They gain the weight all around their body, not just in one place, so not just in the belly or just in the hips. They tend to gain the weight all around their body, and that gives them that full-figured look. And the way it's allocated, it doesn't look displaced. The season is late winter and spring. So everyone can feel this regardless of their dosha test again. In late winter or spring, we can start to feel a little bit of that moisture in the air and the imbalance that it creates. The organs: lungs, stomach, pancreas, plasma, lymph, joints, sinuses, nose, and tongue. So something to take notice here in late winter and spring is when some people tend to be more susceptible to something like bronchitis or even pneumonia. That excess moisture and mucus builds up in the respiratory. And that would be very much kapha, because kapha is the lungs and the lymph and your sinuses. Structure: bone density, fat regulation, strength, and stamina and stability. So kapha is all about, they have that structure, they're earth. So they have the density and the strength and the stamina and the stability. When they feel out of balance, they don't have these things. They don't have stability. Liquid. So all the body fluids, saliva, mucus, lymph. Again, this goes along with being sick, sinus infections, respiratory issues, that excess mucus and fluids in the body. It does, however, govern the lubrication, the structure, energy, stability, repair, and restoration. So sleep. Kaphas love to sleep long hours. The mucus, healthy mucus, helps keep us lubricated, right? And moisture, they're grounded. They like to nurture. Memory retention is good. Kindness and giving. They're very kind and laid back and giving people. Heavy. They have a heavy feeling in the body. They're bigger boned. And they have a tendency to become overweight, sedentary, and heaviness in the heart. They carry themselves very heavy. Slow. They walk and talk slowly. Slow digestion and metabolism. Slow to initiate change. So here, because of the slow digestion and metabolism, they tend to don't do well with a lot of oils and fats in their food. So we've talked about earlier who does well with oils and who doesn't. Your kapha, it slows down their digestion too much, and sometimes they tend to burp, or oils don't set well in their bodies. So earlier I said when we were talking about excess oils and fats, I would let you know who doesn't do well with these excess oils and fats. And this is it. This is your kapha people. They don't need their digestion slowed down any more than it already is. They tend to be cold. They have cold body temperatures and get cold easily. The cold, so a cold digestive fire leading to slow metabolism as well. And they get head colds easily. So this is the person that always has a head cold. And even though a kapha carries the fuller weight well and beautifully, they have to be careful because it is easy to put on too much weight and use this as an excuse for how they look or feel. You'll hear somebody say, oh, well, I'm kapha, I'm just naturally heavier. So they'll start to use this as an excuse rather than keeping things in check. They can sometimes be too accepting of their reality, which is a kapha characteristic too. Kaphas tend to be easygoing. They don't show their stress much, and they can be very complacent. But again, this lax thinking can take them too far out of their comfort zone, and they need to get things moving, because even though they may think they are okay with being bigger, it is still unhealthy. Their joints tend to ache from the excess weight. Their digestion can be really slow, and they become too sedentary or stagnant like a murky pond. This is the earth taking over this dosha. They're becoming too much of their earth side and losing some of the water. They're becoming murky. And they need to get their water flowing to balance them out. Or the opposite, when a kapha starts to worry too much, they're on the go too much, they feel like they are floating, they need to ground down. So when a kapha is too fluid, then they need to reach for their earth element. So oily, they tend to already have oily skin, hair, and well-lubricated joints. And they get irritated by the excess oils. As I mentioned, they're the one that when they eat really greasy or fatty foods, they feel horrible. They feel heavy, they're not digesting it, and they tend to burp and have upset tummies. Damp, clammy hands, congestion in the chest, sinuses, throat, and headaches. So again, that extra moisture around them in the late winter or spring can create more congestion in the chest, leading to bronchitis or even worse, pneumonia. Smooth. They have smooth skin and hair, smooth bowels, calm nature, and a smooth voice when they're in balance. Dense. Dense bodies, padding of fat around the midsection, thick and dense legs, thick skin, hair, nails, and stool. Soft features, big eyes, soft skin and hair, compassionate, loving, and gentle. So again, they have the thickness all over, including their hair and their skin. So it doesn't look displaced on their bodies because everything tends to be thicker. Static. They tend to want to be sedentary. They love to sleep, and they can sit many of hours a day, and it can even become habitual. So they need to get up and get moving, or they tend to become too static. Sticky. They are loyal, loves to hug, attach. They attach easily to other people and things. They have firm joints and organs and sticky stools. Cloudy. Often has a cloudy mind, unable to think until after morning coffee. So again, they tend to be static and sedentary, so they do well with morning coffee to get them moving, wake them up, balance them out. Sweet. They have cravings for sweet, and they have a sweet personality. They're highly fertile, strong desire for sex and procreation. Salty. Retains water. If they have too much salt, they retain water because they already have some saltiness to them. Long-standing energy, grows quickly, may crave salty foods. So even though they're already salty, they tend to crave more. Just like Pitta tends to crave spicy things, even though they already have a fire brewing inside them. When their mind is out of balance, laziness, depression, loneliness, longing, sadness, jealousy, and attachment can consume them. As kids, when we were kids, we had a lot of kapha in us. A kid often plumps up and then has a growth spurt. Or they are drooling, runny nose, and clammy when cutting a tooth. They go through periods of long sleep to create growth. They can even be so-called sticky to one parent or another for a period of time. And they can definitely need their coffee first thing in the morning to get moving. That was just a joke. Just wanted to throw that in there to see if you are listening. In short, always keep in mind, we all have the 3 doshas and 5 elements in all of us already, and all the time. They shift and move with the seasons, our environment, and current situations, such as stress or excitement. Because yes, even excitement can trigger a different dosha. Remember being excited about something, like falling in love. Those first few weeks or months are pure bliss. You can eat anything you want and not gain a pound. Or maybe you're just eating less because you're living on love, not food. You are just not thinking about emotional eating because you are in love. You feel warmer, more enthusiastic, more energetic, motivated to take on the world because you are in love. Back to the slide. Each dosha has particular attributes that influence the body. Vata is air and ether, late fall, winter, cold, dry, controls the nervous system and all the movement in the body. Pitta is fire and water, summer, hot, sharp, oily, operates the stomach and all the transformation/digestion in the body. Kapha is earth and water, late winter, spring, cool, slow, damp, regulates the structure and the stability in the body. To regain equilibrium, you must counterbalance those uneven qualities in your diet and lifestyle. It is the yin and the yang, fire, water, water, earth, air, ether. You need to live in the present to fix the present. Regardless of how you have seen yourself in the past or over your lifetime, you have probably experienced all three doshas. As a kid, we are naturally very kapha, growing, building our structures and foundations, even mucus-ridden as our immune system was growing and constantly challenged. In our 20s to 30s, Pitta was guiding us, strong and could stomach anything, adventurous and curious. The internal fire burned bright. But as we get older, we become more vata, dry, poor circulation, less tolerant to the weather, body stiffness, and so on. Also, depending on the client you live in or have lived in, you can probably think of some times in your life when you felt much different than you do now. So to heal yourself, you have to truly cater to today's needs. A reflection on the past can help, knowing where you come from, but you have to treat today's needs. If you have a tendency to be gassy and bloated after eating then you need to cook your foods and avoid cold beverages like smoothies and iced drinks, no matter what time of the year it is or how much you think you love cold foods. Some people will always have that vata digestion in them. If you tend to have too much fire, heartburn, and sour stomach, then you might do better with eating raw vegetables and cooling down your system, and also avoiding the heavy animal meats like beef. Stick to more of the white meats. It truly isn't a one-size-fits-all. Follow your instincts or your ether. Prakriti and constitution. This is what you are born with. Prakriti equals or is the Sanskrit term for constitution. This is your DNA, your roots, what you came into the world with. When you took the dosha test, you may have been surprised about your results because you swore your results would be the opposite or different. Especially if you are out of balance right now, then your dosha results are quite opposite of what you want to be or perceive yourself to be. You can be overweight right now and testing more kapha, but you swear at one time in your life you were more vata, a thin stick, and couldn't put on weight if you tried. You also probably felt your best when you were more vata. This is because your original constitution could be vata, and learning how to cultivate your original constitution could help you balance out, lose weight, and feel more like yourself again. But for now, you have to accept the results of your test. But the results of your test should shed light on how you feel today and how you might be able to change some habits to recover your prakriti constitution and feel your best. For instance, if you swear you are a vata, but your test is showing kapha, then you need to get moving. More than likely, you're showing more kapha because you're being more stagnant. Everything's a little bit murky right now. You may not be getting as much exercise as you normally do. So you need to get yourself moving first. The biggest difference between a vata and a kapha is the movement. Remember, vata is the dosha that governs the movement in our body, including your blood flow, your digestion, how you're absorbing your nutrients. It's the movement. Whereas kapha tends to be more the structure, the earth, the grounding down. And while we need both, if you swear that you've been a heavy vata at one time, that your prakriti or your constitution is truly more vata, then take notice if you're living more the kapha lifestyle, the sedentary, murky pond lifestyle. And the first thing you need to do is get moving. Get off the couch if that's what's holding you down. Vatas like to travel, they like to be on the move, and they like to be challenged. So if you are in a rut and not living your vata, then kapha will consume you. So just as an example, this could happen with any of the 3 doshas or combinations of the doshas. So start to think of the opposite, your yin and your yang, to be able to counterbalance any imbalances in your body. All right, eat right for your dosha. Remember, I mentioned at the beginning, all health, good or bad, comes down to digestion and elimination. So if you have been overwhelmed by all of this, or seem to have multiple characteristics of all 3 doshas, and you just don't know where to start, then come back to digestion and elimination. This is a simple place to start and or stay. You don't need to get too caught up in the mental and emotional aspects to stay on an Ayurvedic path. Just by focusing on your digestion, everything else will fall into place. Let's face it, if your belly is feeling good and everything is digesting and you're eliminating properly, you're not constipated, you're not having diarrhea, your personality and your attitude is going to be better, right? So resist wanting to fester too much on the mental aspects of your dosha when you're out of balance. Granted, it's a sign that maybe something's going on in your body, but to fix it, you want to focus on the digestion and then the elimination. Your digestion is referred to as your digestive fire, your Agni. Agni is the Sanskrit term for fire, your digestive fire. You want to eat foods that are easiest for your body to break down, absorb, and assimilate according to your doshic constitution right now. Even next week it can be different. So what your doshic constitution is right now. Of course, I want to throw in there, if you've had a diagnosis of something like celiac or gluten intolerance, then you always want to make that your priority and keep the wheat, rye, and spelt on the down low, even if the dosha allows it. Same with dairy. If you know dairy is bad for you, don't go there. Go by the doctor's orders in this case. Also remember, our doshas change. So the doshas that recommend dairy, you might be able to think of a time when dairy did sit well with you. Like when you were more of a vata before you became kapha. When you were more vata, you probably could tolerate some dairy and eat some dairy here and there. But right now, if you're testing more kapha, kaphas don't do well on dairy. So back off on the dairy until you start to feel like maybe you're counterbalancing and finding your balance through vata. And you might be able to reintroduce dairy again someday. But if this is doctor's orders or some kind of allergy test, like even a peanut allergy, then of course avoid it. No matter what the dosha says, any kind of allergy testing or doctor's orders probably should be considered first, or consult your doctor and see what they think before trying it. Remember, Ayurveda is a set of guidelines, and I am your guide. Within that, it's pretty amazing how close you can get to figuring out what your body needs. But within all of that, it's a set of guidelines, not a must do or must have in your life. So listen to your body. It's that mind-body connection. Eat right for your Vata dosha. So up at the top there, I have Vata in a different colored word because now we've moved into eating right for the Vata dosha. Vatas can eat all sweet fruits, cooked vegetables, grains, few legumes, and most organic dairy, including butter, buttermilk, soft cheese, and milk. All nuts and seeds, most natural sweeteners, and a rich array of spices and oils. Vatas do the best on animal proteins compared to other doshas. They favor moist, sweet, and easy to digest. Red meat, chicken, or turkey, especially dark meat, eggs, fish, and the fish can be fresh or saltwater. Also, keep to warm cooked foods, hot beverages, oily foods, and sweet foods, like sweet potato. This is a sweet food, not sweets. This is not an excuse to eat a candy bar or a whole cake or anything like that, but your sweet foods, like a sweet potato. They should stay away from light, dry, crunchy, cold foods and beverages, like chips, crackers, those light, dry foods. Even rice cakes probably don't go over well with a Vata. They should also stay away from dry fruits, raw vegetables, including garlic and onions, and difficult to digest legumes. Difficult to digest legumes are whole green, brown, and red lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans, and other beans like cannellini, pinto, etc. Think about my fire and ice example. If you continue to put cold foods in a Vata, you're constantly putting out their fire. And a Vata doesn't have as strong of a fire as a Pitta, so you can easily put out a Vata fire. If you don't have that proper balance in a Vata, their fire can go out very easily. So resist wanting to smother a Vata's fire with cold foods and beverages. Vatas, however, tend to love salads, but is the hardest for them to digest. And as long as they keep eating them, they will never recover their digestive fire and will constantly have stomach issues, constipation, bloating, and gas, to the point they will seek medical help and swear that they have a medical issue. But just stop eating raw vegetables. Just even try it for a week and see what happens. The digestion, however, takes weeks or months to heal. So if you feel better by ditching your favorite raw veggies, then you will want to continue this for a while. Some true Vatas can never stomach raw vegetables. But it isn't the end of the world. Move on and enjoy steaming, stir-frying, or roasting your veggies. They are so good for you. I at one time tried to be a vegetarian and ate tons of raw veggies constantly, thinking I was being healthy. I was constantly sick and would try to eat even more veggies to build my immune system, or so I thought. Really, I was aggravating my Vata and putting out my Pitta fire. So I continued to be sick. Adding back animal proteins and backing off on raw veggies, I started to feel better. Currently today, I get less sick. I even lost some weight. And I just do much better. The day I decided that raw carrots were the worst thing I could ever eat and I stopped trying, I felt better. So I am definitely a Vata person. I have a lot of Vata in me. I love to eat spicy foods. Spicy foods do well in me because they warm me up. But raw veggies do not sit well with me at all. Also, recently I had a conversation with a coworker one day. We were discussing what we can and cannot eat. She was eating pita chips, which would totally bother bother my stomach and make me constipated. They're too drying. Vata, I mentioned a little bit ago that they need to stay away from the light, dry, crunchy foods. So that would be these pita chips. They're too light and dry and constipating for me. As the conversation went on, though, she mentioned that fruit is the hardest thing on her stomach. So a good example of how I am more Vata and she is probably more Kapha. So dry foods feel good to her. And I do better with sweet, juicy foods from my Vata. But Kapha tends to do well with dry foods and don't do well with sweet, juicy fruits. I have had periods of being more Kapha in my body, though. I've had constant sinus infections, sore throats, and so on. This is when I'm usually trying to be a vegetarian, but my body doesn't do well with having a lot of kapha in it. It pulls me too far out of balance and from my constitution, my prakriti. So I truly do better when I'm slightly more vata than any of the other two doshas. But I definitely have been all across the board in all doshas at some time in my life. All right, eat right for your pitta dosha. Pittas can eat all sweet fruits, most vegetables with the exception of nightshades, which are listed below, cooling grains, all legumes, some organic dairy, few nuts, all seeds, and natural sweeteners. Pittas can eat raw veggies very well. Think of juicy foods with higher water content and cooling foods like kale, arugula, melons, and coconuts. Oils, ghee, olive, and coconut are fine. So is some dairy, butter, cream, and milk. Spices that aren't too hot. Pittas tend to crave spicy and hot, but they regret the excess heat later. It adds too much to their fire. Pittas do best eating white meat, fish, and eggs. They do well with grains, as the grains provide fuel for pitta. However, avoid heavily yeasted breads or breads that rise. A flat bread, pita, or tortilla would be more to the liking of the digestion of a pitta. They should stay away from citrus fruit, acid foods like vinegar, nightshades, excess garlic and onions, warming grains, and excess nuts. They don't do well with salty aged cheeses like blue or feta. Nightshade vegetables are especially harmful for pitta's digestion. Nightshades is a term commonly used for a group of plants in the Solanaceae family. I think I pronounced that correctly. These plants contain glycoalkaloids, natural pesticides that fight against bacteria, fungi, viruses, and insects. Nightshade vegetables include tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, potatoes, paprika, goji berries, and tobacco. Even if you aren't pitta, if you are experiencing digestive issues, try removing these vegetables from your diet and see if your digestion improves. What's going on with pitta here is they already have so much digestive fire that some of these foods that they're told not to eat create excess heat in the body. Like red meat digests very hot, so it adds too much heat to the body and can even result in some heartburn or uric acid in the body. Uric acid usually shows up as gout. So pittas really do have to be careful with eating foods that create more heat. Even citrus and vinegar can create more heat, as well as the aged cheeses like blue and feta. And also the yeasty breads. The yeast if you think about it, to get yeast bread to rise, you usually also have to have the bread in a warm space because it helps cultivate the fire of the yeast to be able to grow and rise. Heat expands, cold shrinks. So when you even think about ice cubes, ice shrinks. But whenever something gets hot, it expands. So anything that's creating excess heat is creating that excess expansion in your belly, and it's going to start pushing things up your esophagus to where you have that heartburn. That's a really good example. So hopefully that gets to the point. And the nightshades, by producing their own glycoalkaloids, it also creates more heat in those foods. When you're eating those foods tend to have a little more heat to them. Like tomatoes can be very acidic and heat. They harbor a lot of heat. And red meat, I think I may have explained this. Yeah, I think I mentioned red meat already. That uric acid results in gout. While these foods may not be so great for pitta, the vata could do well on them to warm up a vata or a kapha, except for the meat part. Which brings us to kapha. Eat right for your kapha dosha. Kaphas do well as vegetarians. This is your vegetarian. Ironically, though, as we've been learning, each dosha tends to crave what it shouldn't have, and the kaphas tend to still want to eat meat, even though they do well as a vegetarian. They should also eat warm cooked foods. They do well with dry foods such as popcorn and rice cakes. Light foods low in fat and oil. Hot or warm beverages. So the kapha, remember, they're heavy already, and they tend to even have oilier skin, and so heavy, oily foods do not set well with the kapha. They like to have the lighter, drier foods. They can do most vegetables, but again, raw vegetables are still going to be tough for them. So dry saute or roasted, avoiding excess oils. So they should avoid French fries because French fries are cooked in heavy oils. Light grains, all legumes, light dairy, honey, no nuts, all seeds, light oils like sunflower and non-GMO canola or corn and flaxseed oil, and all spices except salt. Kaphas tend to retain water already and be salty already, so they don't need excess salt. It'll just aggravate their water balance even more. They should stay away from cold food and beverages, sweet fruit, raw vegetables, heavy grains, all breads, pastas, and pastries, heavy dairy including ice cream, yogurt, and cheeses, no nuts. Keep even tofu at a minimum. However, tofu is a better choice for them than meat. Kaphas are already oily and heavy in nature, so they don't need much oil. Although a little oil should be included in their diet to help absorb other nutrients. Good example, turmeric needs oil to be effective. Kaphas tend to complain when they eat oily or fried foods that they don't digest it, or they burp a lot after consuming it. So stick to lighter oils like grapeseed oil, olive oil, and sunflower oil. These oils are not good at high temperatures though, so resist trying to fry food with these oils. They are better used as a dressing. But kapha do better with dry saute and roasted veggies anyway. Remember, kapha doesn't do well with fried food. So resist wanting to fry your food in the first place, and then you don't have to worry about overheating what oil you're cooking with. Also, sweet tastes aggravate kapha, especially if kaphas are trying to lose weight. So remember my conversation I was having with my coworker that the dry, crispy pita chips were like, her body did well with those, but my body wouldn't. But the second I mentioned eating fruit, she said she doesn't do well with fruit. She can tell that her body does not process fruit very well. Sweets, she says she avoids sweets pretty much altogether. Any kind of sugar doesn't settle well with her. So she's definitely more of a kapha and I'm more of the vata. While a kapha might do well as a vegetarian, though, remember they still may not do well with raw veggies like a pitta does. The pitta is truly your raw veggie dosha. Kapha is your vegetarian, but you should roast or dry saute the vegetables. You might be able to as a kapha in the summer. If it's a warm summer, you can probably do better on some salads and raw veggies. But most of the time, most of the year, a kapha is going to still need some warm teas and cooked veggies. Just remember, kaphas can feel heavy very easily, so stick to lighter, drier foods. And dairy tends to add to the heavy mucous membranes. So that's why dairy tends to, you tend to want to keep dairy on the down low with a kapha so it doesn't contribute to the sinus infections and the phlegm and such. What if you have 2 or 3 doshas? Most people have more than one predominant dosha. And first of all, be sure to read the sections on both the doshas that are dominant to you. Always try and keep yourself up to date on the different doshas so you can recognize changes in your body and then cater to them. Next, work on the dosha that is most out of balance. It could be just a temporary imbalance due to the weather, climate, or stress. So you will need to know which is most out of character for your comfort zone. Remember, we all have the 3 doshas in us, but we are constantly changing. So target what is making you most uncomfortable, and when in doubt, make sure you are digesting and eliminating. Ideally, you want to be tridosha, right? A balance of all. Unless it is tridosha, meaning you have the bad side effects of all 3. In that case, really minimize what you are eating, cook everything, journal your diet, and rebuild from the digestion up. If you feel you need to speak with a professional and seek help with a professional, make sure you check their credentials. You can always do it private with me, and hopefully we can figure it out. But if it is much deeper than my scope of expertise, then we can find you somebody more apt in helping you out. But as an example of having 1 or more dosha as your current state, I tend to do better eating for a vata. I love spicy foods and they warm me up. Recently, I went through a phase though where I was not tolerating spicy foods and citrus. I was getting heartburn. This was very unusual for me, but it was a sign that I was having more pitta in my vata body. So you could say I was pitta vata, but my pakriti or constitution being more vata, I had to back off on the spicy and citrus to get back to my comfort zone. I had to calm down the pitta to get back to my vata comfort zone. When I was trying to be a vegetarian and I ate a lot of raw veggies and dry breads, I was constantly sick, constipated, and farted a lot. I know this is definitely more than you ever wanted to know, but we got to discuss this so that you can quasi understand maybe what you're going through. When I was eating raw veggies, I was essentially putting out my digestive fire, and things started to get too slow for me. I was slowing down my digestion. But by adding animal protein back into my diet, especially a steak, I felt better. I really do well with red meat. Even though I don't want to admit it, I do. Even now, if I feel out of balance, a steak will pull me back. I just can't overthink when I'm eating because I love all animals, big and small. Trendy diets and doshas. So coming back to that whole, none of us are of one mold. We are all different, and just one method of eating or way of life is not going to help us all. So Dr. Kulreet Chowdhury, in her book The Prime, she says, so this is taken from her book, the reason why the 3 different doshas don't all do well on the same diet. There are a lot of diets out there, and the reason they don't work so well for some people and not others has everything to do with the doshas. Vata. This is the only type I believe does well on a paleo diet long term. The only type that can benefit from small amounts of animal protein on a regular basis. Vatas need to be grounded. They need more weight, and animal protein keeps them there. While all the veggies and fruits on the paleo diet can also be tailored to Vata's particular needs. Ironically, the worst diet for Vata is the raw diet, which is highly aggravating, and yet many Vatas feel compelled to eat salad all the time. Pitta. Because Pitta runs hot and also acidic, Pittas do well on an alkaline diet, which emphasizes mild, cooling, alkaline foods such as leafy greens, cucumbers, celery, peas, apples, and melons. Of course, Pittas tend to crave meat and highly spicy food, which is quite aggravating for them if eaten regularly. Pittas should moderate their intake of meat because it is so heating to the body, and they should be particularly cautious about gluten because these are both inflammatory for Pitta's already overwhelmed gut. Once digestion is healed, Pitta is the dosha that does best on occasional raw foods, such as having a salad for lunch. Kapha. Kapha is the one dosha that truly thrives on a vegan diet. The light, stimulating foods are just the ticket for getting the kapha off the couch to spread their cheerful demeanor and wise counsel far and wide. Of course, kapha is the dosha least likely to want to eat a vegan diet. They crave meat and dairy, but they are naturally born vegans, and if they eat a vegan diet, it is unbelievable how good they feel. Kaphas on vegan diets can live to a ripe old age because kaphas are so naturally sturdy. Kapha is the only dosha that really never needs any animal products other than bone broth during periods of cleansing and healing. Light grains and cooked veggies are the ultimate kapha diet. Do you really need Ayurveda? So this is more from Dr. Kulreet Chowdhury in the Prime book. She says if you are eating whole foods and feeling great and digesting well, then you might not feel the need to change your diet to be dosha specific. Eating for your dosha at this point is only for those who feel like they are still having problems and want more help. How strictly you need to follow these dosha guidelines really depends on your gut IQ. Once your gut heals, you can violate these dosha rules and still feel fine most of the time because your agni, your internal fire and digestion, can assimilate a diverse whole food diet. She also basically suggests if you do sway away from the doshas in eating for your body type, know that these concepts have been around for thousands of years. It is not a trend or a yo-yo diet thing, but a way to heal your gut and body, and will always be here for you if you feel out of sorts, not well, or sense your body is shifting. Ayurveda can be thought of as a tool you can use when needed. Take the test as often as needed to figure out what dosha your body is falling into, because your body will change with the weather, as you age, stress levels, and even monthly, as a woman's hormones are often unpredictable. The more you take the test, adjust your needs if needed, then you start to memorize the characteristics and how to adjust your needs automatically. For instance, on a cold day, you will automatically eat cooked, warm foods or drink hot teas to keep you balanced. Then on a day when you eat some raw veggies or a heavy protein and you feel bloated or heavy, then you know your body isn't digesting those foods very well right now. So back off and cook your veggies and resist having the heavy proteins. Ayurveda is a practice of the mind-body connection. Let it be a way of life and listening to your body's signals daily. You choose your own adventure, but know knowledge is power. We have approached that 2-hour mark, and if you're finding you're wanting more or a full list of the foods and recipes, then I highly suggest you buy a couple of books to dig deeper. But Ayurveda is huge, and for me to even put into a 2-hour module for you just to get you started, obviously, there's a lot even with what I've shared with you today. So if you're finding you're wanting more, I do recommend these 2 books. The Prime by Cultivate Choudhury, MD. She's the integrative neurologist. Her book is amazing. It is all about giving up junk, reversing the dis-ease in your body, giving up yo-yo dieting, healing your digestion and body, and a new outlook on your health. She doesn't have many recipes by means of a full cookbook, but has some short recipes for healing your gut and body. So like the prime tea and bone broth and things like that to heal your gut. Also, there's The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda by Sahara Rose Katabi. This book will give you an easy-to-read, thorough understanding of Ayurveda, complete with some recipes, yoga poses, remedies, and much, much more. The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda, compared to the book The Prime, is very general. If you have some deep health issues, then get the Prime, because Dr. Cultivate Choudhury is an actual medical doctor and a neurologist doing the integrative medicine with Ayurveda. Whereas Sahara Rose Katabi, she's amazing and she lived in India and learned Ayurveda. She's actually not considered a doctor. Even though she knows way more than I do, she is good for that well-rounded Ayurveda practice. But if you want some help from a medical doctor's standpoint, go with the book The Prime. Ideally, you would have both books, though. You'd have both books in your library and on your nightstand or wherever you need it to be able to reference it often. Your own work. Journal your thoughts on Ayurveda. Continue to meditate, breathe, or just take time to sit with your thoughts. Take time to sit with the ether, now that you know what ether is. Since we all should be working on all 3 doshas, everybody should take some time to sit with ether. Sit with some space, making room to think. If you didn't take the dosha quiz, go back and take it. Go by a dry brush. In the picture to the left here, you see a form of a dry brush. Get a nice oil for your skin. My favorite is grapeseed for an affordable choice, and rosehip is amazing but pricey. Mix a combo to help the rosehip go further if you want. And apply this to your skin. Remember, apply in the direction of moving towards your heart and your lungs. Coconut oil is wonderful too, though. You can slather that all over your body if you want. Get a tongue scraper. A stainless steel is fine. No plastic. So right there's a picture. That thing with the pink handles, that's my tongue scraper. That's what it looks like. Try to do some oil pulling for at least 3 minutes. This is where you swish about a teaspoon of oil in your mouth like mouthwash for at least 3 minutes or more. Drink tea. Maybe this is even the tridoshic tea of the cumin, coriander, and fennel. And then read a book on Ayurveda to learn more, or even Google some stuff on Ayurveda. And last but not least, thank you for your support and dedication to finding your true path in this journey we call life. Feedback is the gift of sharing. Namaste is the light, the student, and the teacher in me honors the light, the student, and teacher in you. Knowing I can learn from my students just as much as I am sharing my knowledge with my students, there is no doubt in my mind that I can benefit from constructive feedback from you. I value any and all feedback. However, I do ask that you provide constructive feedback and no haters. Thank you very much. And again, if you need any more information, please let me know. Contact me, and I would love to help you out and answer any questions you might have. As I seal this practice today, namaste.